flawless experts who have all the answers. That's not this podcast. Instead, we chat with professionals who love what they do, have wisdom to share, and can laugh at their own mistakes. I'm Marc, and I'm the host of the WorkPlay Solutions podcast. So let's laugh, learn, and discover the joy of work. Boo, boo, boo. We are here for part 2 of our conversation with Dana Harper about who is Dorothy Sayers and her legacy of work and whimsy. So, Dana, can you just summarize real quick what you said about work and play being equal in the first half?
Yeah. Dorothy is one of the examples of someone who firmly believes work and play come from the same place in our nature as humans. It's part of who we are, and it fulfills us. She calls it satisfaction. Modern terminology would probably be self-actualization. But that fulfillment that we get in pursuing our hobbies that we don't get paid for is the same type of fulfillment that we usually get when we actually enjoy our job and are proud of what we do when we work. And so the compensation. Now, as an HR manager, I have to say, I do compensation. I believe in paying people. I am a massive, wait, what terminology am I supposed to use instead of nerd?
Oh, we said ultra reader.
Okay, I'm a massive ultra reader. Well, it goes a little different than wage and hour law. I am all about, if you do this work, I am compensating you fairly here. Yeah. I go very intensely into that. It's one of my favorites. And it also comes from cutting my teeth in HR and employment law in California, where that's a big deal. So I have to put that caveat out there. I'm not advocating that we don't pay people for their work and that they just love it and they live off of rainbows and smiley faces. So I have to say that as a professional, I do believe in paying people for work, but work and play should come from the same place. They should be more similar than they are in our world.
Yep, I was actually doing a podcast interview in real world time. It was recorded yesterday, but this will be several weeks after it aired. But I was on the Rome Business X podcast, which spotlights small businesses and associated with the Roman Floyd Chamber, and they had asked me, I can't remember if this was part of the episode or a conversation we had afterwards, but this idea of, it was one of the guests actually asked me after the episode about wages and how that relates to the Great Resignation and satisfaction and things like that. And my answer to him was, there's a line at which if you are not past that mentally, you believe you are being taken advantage of by your employer. And once you're past that, it's no longer a motivating factor in changing behavior. So here's the line. If I don't get that, they're ripping me off. It is an unfair labor practice. If once I'm beyond that, it's not the number one thing that folks care about. I don't know if that's still true now that we're at like 15% inflation over the last 2 years, so who knows?
I think that just means that line moves up.
Yeah.
that baseline. And that kind of connects to, and I laugh because I'm bringing up Aristotle and one of my favorite little passages in a satirical little book called Are Women Human? Because Dorothy Sayers wrote this, Are women human? And she satirically answers, not quite. And of course, the whole thing is tongue-in-cheek because she's poking fun at the fact that, of course, we're human. We are not subhuman. But she referenced, the uselessness of generalities when they're applied in the wrong contexts. And so she was referencing that, do women as a class really care what Aristotle thinks? No, but should that stop me as a woman finding out about Aristotle? I love Aristotle. I want to find out about Aristotle. Don't stop me just because I belong to some sort of generality. So I was about to say, as Aristotle references, there's a certain measure of well-being and life provision that is required for someone to be thriving. There's something in the middle, Aristotle is all about the golden mean or whatever, the average right in the middle. So there is a level at which someone has to have their daily needs met. Again, with self-actualization, it's way up there. You have to get to the other ones, like you must have shelter and that kind of stuff. And that kind of leads us into quite a lot of what she references here is that she references like the consequences of understanding work and play being the same thing. The consequences of this are not merely that the work should be performed under decent living and working conditions and for a decent wage. But this connects as well to, I'm glad you brought up the Great Resignation because, and I also, I'm glad that you brought up the way the worker feels like they're being ripped off by their employer, because she references that when we have this misguided attitude toward work, which comes from the employer wanting to get the cheapest labor for their work, and the employee thinking that the highest paid job is the one they should always be going for.
You are going to love the episode we do with Marc Hunsaker because we actually talked about some of the very things you're referencing now that was in our conversation. And that comes, those 2 episodes come out right after our episodes with Dana. So
I love it. So she references what most of us right now, when we've got this kind of wrong idea about work, what most of us demand from society is that we should always get out a little more than the value of the labor we give to it. By this process, we persuade ourselves that society is always in our debt, a conviction that not only piles up actual financial burdens, but leaves us with a grudge against society. So in looking at work this way, we've actually put ourselves and our own society basically in this kind of indebted and grudging mindset about work, which stunts the whole thing.
I shovel 16 tons and what do I get? Another day older and deeper in debt, like that old. Is that Johnny Cash? I don't. Maybe. If it's not, members of the Cash family, we apologize. So we'll fact check that, and I'll probably forget.
I don't know. It sounds like a 1930s work song or something.
Yeah, it probably is. I don't know.
That's fun.
I know it's a thing. I didn't make it up. So can you unpack that idea of, you said indebtedness? So because we are being asked to do something that isn't part of our nature, really, because naturally, Dorothy Sayers contends that our work and our play are coming from the same place. So we would love for our work to look like our play. And of course, if you're a parent, you're like, oh, ha, ha. Like, of course, all of us would like to eat cake for every meal. And of course, we want our work to look like our play. But I live in the real world.
Right, the real world where I sell my soul every day and the blah, blah. And so she contends it doesn't have to be like this. And I think that's one of the things that the Great Resignation might be displaying is that, of course, there's all sorts of other things that go into it. But people who suddenly realize that when you put a stop to the rat race and this idea that it is not fulfilling and maybe the real world should change a little bit. If all these other catastrophic changes are happening, then maybe some good change should happen as well. Some realization, some awareness. And I think that one of the things she was really big on is that if work and play are the same, and if it comes from this place where I am proud of what I just did. So we still have to work. We can't all, we can't all paint pictures for young children for a living like what I wanted to.
Some people do, but
I did before law school. I have a still on Amazon a children's book.
What's it called?
It's called God's Little Raindrops, and I wrote it with an Alabama grandpa, and he wrote it, and I illustrated it and did all of the typesetting, formatting, and everything. And it was our first attempt, so it's not like brilliant and amazing and beautiful. And I'm not going to be like, that is my pièce de résistance. But it's out there because people liked it, and it was popular, and his family and all his connections liked it. And just recently, when I finished a big software project, some of the people Googled me, I guess, trying to find me on LinkedIn. And I was like, haha, I'm so iconoclastic. But they found me on Amazon and bought my children's book. And I was really kind of like, what life am I living right now when, some project manager in Chicago like holds up my children's book and goes, I found your book. And I was like, what happened? Oh, my compartmentalizations are falling apart.
The concepts of employment law are very simplified in that book, I'm assuming.
Oh, man. Yes. Yes.
It's not really a children's book about employment law, is it?
No,
Okay.
no, I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
I don't think I can't remember. It was like
Kids, these are the things people can't ask you in an interview.
I can't. It was probably like, was it Albert Einstein? It was like the mark of true brilliance is if you can explain really complicated things to a child. I'm like, I'm not smart enough to explain employment law to a child. I'm sorry. I'm not going to make a children's book about that.
Well,
I'm not that smart.
She is. I'm going to buy that for my kids. I had no idea you were a published author. I love books and want the girls to read, so I will get that, buy that today. What was the name of that one more time?
Oh, God's Little Raindrops.
God's Little Raindrops. That sounds fun. I love the fact that folks are never as simple as just what they do never as what folks do for a living is never their complete story or persona. So that's fun. All right. So what's next on our list?
Another thing that goes into the Great Resignation and some of this stuff where if we really took seriously that play and work should look the same, when we play, a lot of us really are proud of, some of the stuff that we've worked on and we've done, and we've got that passion. So she referenced if we really took that part seriously, then greatest insult which a commercial age, she says, has offered to the worker has been to rob him of all interest in the end product of the work and to force him to dedicate his life to making badly things which were not worth making. And so she's definitely coming at it from an age in which the service economy wasn't there yet. It was, goods, creation of goods and things. But I think the concept continues to play out. And I think part of the Great Resignation was people realizing that they had been done a disservice in that way. Yes, there's probably a lot of, I think Teddy calls it grass is greener, where you think you have a grudge against society because you think you were supposed to get a little more out of it than you put in. And that's, your contribution to selling your soul. Because it isn't fulfilling. And people realize that they are doing badly or making badly, being managed or forced to make badly something that doesn't even need to exist in the first place. So I think that is part of our societal change. So I think it's an encouraging move in hoping that people take this more seriously. I definitely, not to take us on a total side tangent, but I think that might be a good combatant to the mental health crisis and a lot of other things. So it might be a really good thing that we have the Great Resignation. I mean, I don't know. We're still in the middle of it all.
I mean, I'm a card-carrying member, so I started my own business.
Well, see, and I'm HR, and we're like, we have 80 positions to fill, and nobody wants to come work. So it's like, feel like I'm talking out of both sides. But, in the broad scheme of society and how we think and how we're doing, it might be a sign that we're beginning to take seriously some of the things that kind of trashed our mindsets before and our lifestyles. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah. Somebody asked me recently what caused the Great Resignation, and I don't think there's any one cause. It's a very complex issue, but if I was to summarize a lot of it, there's this theme of when managers or leaders forget that their employees are human first. You see that theme playing out over and over again, where it's if you're an employee before a human being and expected to live that way for a long period of time, it just doesn't work. It's not a thing that people can do. It's not a thing that people can sustain. And you hear that theme coming up in different ways over and over again, where it's like, things that you just go, seriously? Like I read story after story of folks who, don't get paid for 3 hours of overtime, but if they're late, like 2 minutes, they get written up. And it's like, who thinks?
Oh man, let me at him.
Who thinks that's a good idea? Well, one, they should be getting paid for their overtime, but like that's law. But that mentality that like it doesn't matter what you've did, it's not good enough, but more it comes back to like people are human. Humans have needs, wants, hungers, desires. They need their soul filled. You can only live a transactional existence for so long without saying, you know what, it's not worth it. So
Right. And you want to be proud of what you've done at the end of the day. And that's one of the things that she maintains in all of her works. So you see it in tons of essays, you see it in her novels, because her character of Lord Peter Whimsey, he does everything. He's got a whimsical nature, so he does this, he does that. People are like, you're expected to be a lord and aristocrat. And he's like, of course not. I'm going to go, play hard right now. I'm going to go solve cases and do it expertly. I'm going to go, learn jujitsu and do it expertly. This idea is that you work hard and you play hard. And she brings up a really important thing that she says is a little bit paradoxical, but she references that really when you are working, most people think the nice and most perfect answer is, if you say, should you serve the community or should you serve the work? And she references, you need to serve the work first, because if you get it out of order, what you do is not actually going to serve your community. So care about the work for the work's sake, because that's how you know it is good and you will be proud of it. You will sustain it. It will bring you satisfaction. You know that the product is good and it will bring others satisfaction, because when you do it the other way around, she references in one of her others. This one is from, most of what I'm talking about is from an article called Why Work, that it's part of a lecture she delivered, but she's got quite a lot of other ones. But she references when you get it backwards, it's like saying that, okay, so the best art should be paid for at the highest rate. But if an artist lets his work be influenced by considerations of marketing, he will discover that what he is producing is not art. He's manufacturing something. He's put he's thinking about his end product more than the process of making something good that he is proud of, in which case you've not turned out art that elevates society, pleases them or intrigues them or brings up conversations. You've just put out another thing that hangs on the wall for sale in Pier 1 Imports. So she references when you get it the reverse, you're going to end up with something that's twisted and doesn't push us all forward. So serve your work first. Be proud of your work first. The same way that you would with your hobby. Put that first, and it will be serving people and yourself.
And honestly, both it's both fulfilling, and I think people can tell the difference. So when you interact with, I know you're not on social media. I'm on social media way more than I want to be because for the business. But you see the creator influencer economy. Is on LinkedIn, is on Instagram, and those aren't bad things. But there's a distinct difference between the person who is doing it out of joy and making money on doing something at a high level, and the person who is clearly just spouting out their formula but doesn't believe in what they're doing at a fundamental level. And you see that, and it's just like, ugh. I'm just like, I want to push against that, and yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's that kind of, yeah. And you're like, we feel some disgust toward that, which is kind of evidence that it's a little twisted. It's a little backwards when you've put the end product in front of the process. And the process is really what makes it who we are, as humans, as fulfilling, like that process. And then the end product is something we're proud of. And if other people like it, that's great. If other people don't, then that's probably also great.
I won't ask you for final thoughts from Dorothy. We'll do that at the very end. But let's ask some of our bonus questions of you, since we've talked about, the value in loving what you do and that being important. Tell us about a project or initiative that you're especially proud of.
Oh, yeah. I just finished one, and it was in the works since 2018. It went through quite a lot of different delays and then planning to formulate it, and it officially started in July of last year, where we began all of the discovery and implementation and all of the building, all of the testing, all of it. And it was really exciting because I was.
This was a big human resources software project?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It was a big HRIS project. And
No,
it
no
was,
acronyms without defining them.
Oh, Human Resource Information System.
Thank you.
Project. And I don't know, should I call out the system that it is? Because I really believe in it and it's really good.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay. It was Workday, and I'm a believer. I brought home the little swag cup and everything.
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid. No, drink the coffee out of my little Workday cup here. But it was exciting to do that for a whole year. This was really a lesson in, do you love what you do? Can you do it nonstop for a year? With only a few tiny little breaks here and there, because I was fortunate enough to be the lead on the project for my company, which meant that it was, if it made it, that was on my shoulders. If it did not make it, that was on my shoulders. So
if you've never been a project manager for a large project like this, it is a lot.
It was a bit of an adrenaline rush sometimes, but I was really excited to try it. A little intimidated, but I believed in what it would do, and the amount of work-life balance that it would give other people, the amount of paper that I would no longer have to deal, the amount of inefficiency, the amount of freedom that it gave, and personal responsibility and visibility and control that other people would get from having, software services that could do what they used to not be able to do, or have to come to 3 other humans in some sort of little bureaucracy. Like it was totally before, and it kind of killed me. But one of my favorite authors is, as you can tell, I'm an Anglophile. So one of my favorite authors is Charles Dickens. And in one of his books, which has a very fun satirical portion, and one of my favorite books by him is Little Dorrit, and it's called The Circumlocution Office. And the office is literally a circle, and they stand around passing papers around the circle. And at no point do anybody's patents or papers come back out. It just gets entered into the circle, and it goes through the circumlocution office forever. And so the bureaucracy, man,
I think that's an official office
it.
in some organizations.
I bet.
By another name. So, okay.
So to get rid of the circumlocution office in our lives. So I really believed in it, and I was fortunate to learn so much on that project, and it just now finished. Some people were like, you feel like you gave birth to a different baby, a software baby? Because it's been a whole year. I'm like, a little bit.
I want to go down that rabbit trail, but I won't. I love that. I'm sure that, both seeing you this excited about what your contribution and seeing how that affects you, brings me joy, but also hearing you describe the impact it's going to have on the other employees of that organization and how it, makes their life better. It just, that just warms my heart. So let's switch gears then. We're going to flip to spin the wheel of embarrassing moments. Tell us a story of professional failure where you're the one who screwed up, and what did you learn from it?
I shared 2 embarrassing moments just this last week. One of them it was only professional in that it happened in the workplace, but it has never ceased to just make me so embarrassed and so appreciative of my boss. I went one day to bring her back lunch and me back lunch, and I was like all proud of myself because I remembered one time from going through the lunch line with her what she liked. So I prepared her this beautiful little lunch, and I was so excited. So I had my box, her box, and I brought it back to her office and gave it to her and came back to my office. About like an hour and a half later, I opened up the box that I thought was my leftovers. It was her beautiful lunch. I had given my leftovers to my boss. And sweet lady that she was, opened that thing up and was like, well, this is a little smaller than normal. Okay, I'll eat it. She ate my leftovers. I came charging into her office. I was like, Denise, you should fire me now. I fed you my leftovers. I fed you my wimpy salad leftovers. Oh, she was so gracious and was just like, I wondered it was a little tiny. And I was like, no, here's your beautiful plate. Please be proud of me and don't fire me. I don't know. I feel so bad.
I know your boss. She is fantastic. That's so funny. I'm picturing the look on her face right now. She didn't have any diet, or she didn't have any allergies or anything. That would make it even better story. Then we had to get out the EpiPen and.
Oh man. But yes. So that one wasn't particularly, that was like just kind of comedy of errors going on. But I did reference just yesterday, we were talking about, because when you're HR people and you eat lunch together, you talk about things like recruitment and selection and unconscious bias. And I referenced that I was guilty of, basically people who hire themselves, people who recognize someone who is just like themselves. We're referencing actually diversity of thought.
Yeah. Can you, I'm familiar with unconscious bias. Can you just give a quick definition to that term since you mentioned it?
Sure. Yeah. It's basically where everyone has over their life acquired, either through experience or being taught, but they have it unconsciously. They have opinions or biases that they bring to, especially recruitment, selection, and hiring. And it's just the phenomenon where we feel safest and most comfortable and most complimentary towards things that are just like us. And some people think of it as a safety mechanism. Other people see it as a little more insidious, but basically it happens. It happens to everyone. So the task is to learn how to recognize them and tear them down when they are not helpful.
The biases.
Yes, not the humans. Not the humans. Don't tear anyone down.
Dorothy Sayers would be rolling in her grave if she heard you say that, Dana.
So we were talking about that, and I made that exact mistake when I left one of my jobs as an HR manager for a small manufacturing company. And moved from California to Georgia. I hired my replacement, and I hired her because all of her responses were exactly what I would have said. And I was thinking very literally, like, she would replace me. She is saying what I say. She is thinking what I think. So physically, she was nothing like me and all of that, but it was the diversity of thought. I did not consider that at all. And it actually didn't go very well. Like once I left, I think about 6 months later, I found out that it had been very rocky with her, and then she ended up leaving, and they had to find somebody else. And so it was not a good hire. And I had thought it was so simple as she has the quote unquote right answers because she said what I would have said. And I realized that is not the measure of how to hire someone into the right fit. So that is one of my professional mistakes that I definitely think back on. I don't hire very many people now because my role is in HRIS and benefits and policy design and other stuff. And I'm actually pretty grateful for that because assessing other humans and trying to delve into their potential and everything else always gives me a little bit of anxiety because I'm like, you could be anybody. Like, you could undergo so much change. You have so much potential. How do I tell you no? How do I tell you yes? So I overthink things a little bit too much. Like the little philosopher sitting there like analysis paralysis all the time. But so that's probably why I don't spend a lot of my time recruiting and hiring.
What would be your takeaway from that experience?
Rather than using yourself, even if you have been successful in a job, don't use yourself as the ruler for what success must look like. In other words, I thought success in that job would equal, because I had been successful, I thought, well, my performance review said so. So I thought I have been successful. So I should look for the human that is most like me, and that means they will be successful. Okay. Which, I mean, it's common sense kind of thing, but it doesn't hold true for humans, all of whom are individuals. And so if you're thinking, like Dorothy Sayers says, who is the person who would fit this role, then it's not as straightforward as find myself, and that's the answer. So, yeah, it needs to be some other ruler. You need to think through it from other angles. You need to get a lot of other voices in order to find that. Okay. Because it could be somebody with the opposite school of thought who would get to the same exact answer, and it works great. So I think that was my biggest learning from that mistake.
I love that. Thank you for that vulnerability and sharing that story. I think that's a fantastic learning for us to latch on to. So who is someone who has helped you or supported you in your career? Let's thank them by name.
Okay, well, I referenced her earlier, the wonderful Denise Hill, who is Assistant Director of Talent Services, which is what we call HR. So she was the first professional HR person that I met in coming back to Georgia, and she left a big impression. And then when I found out that there was an opening to work for her, I was like, sign me up. I want to work with this lady. And she has been a wonderful partner, life mentor, so wise, very patient for over 5 years for me. Additionally, the director above her has spent so much time mentoring me, helping me think through, Alison Phillips, helping me think through what kind of business professional I want to be. And she really regards her work as developing her people, not doing stuff. So she thinks if she's investing in all of us, then she calls it a good day, which is pretty amazing to be on the other side of.
Yeah, that's great.
So those two people have been directly responsible for my HR career. But in terms of formation, man, there have been some really incredible people who have been part of my formation along the way. I have some really great professors in law school. I had Barry professors who definitely believed in me. And so
you're a Barry graduate, right?
I am. Yep.
Yeah, we are recording today in one of the rooms in Barry College. So thank you to Helen Simmons for letting us borrow your office and record today. So
yes. So I would have to say if anybody is part of the Barry community, Dr. and Reverend David McKenzie was a huge influence on my life. Dr. Peter Lawler was a big influence. Dr. Papazian, who is here, is a big influence on who I became as a person and how I thought about things. I cannot say thank you enough to those people.
Well, great. We'll give them a shout out. And Denise is one of my favorite people on the planet. So she is just filled with joy. And that girl can sing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
She sing your eyebrows off.
It was like a Christmas party or something, and there was a break in the show or the performance, and she's like, let's just sing Christmas carols. And she started singing, and everyone in the room just stopped. It's like, is that an angel? You know?
Yes.
Is that a powerful
I know,
angel?
Powerful angel.
It was incredible. And she doesn't realize how talented she is. But all right, so what is a question you haven't been asked but are burning to answer?
One of the questions that I like to answer about human resources is that the portrayal in media and, business circles and everything is that we are jaded, cut and dried, dissatisfied people who are exhausted with humanity. Now, that can be true. It really does take a toll on you. But at the same time, what I hope to leave behind and what I hope to engender in the people that I train or talk about, if they're interested in human resources or if I'm mentoring them, is that really HR is about wise guardianship. You are guarding people. You are guarding both each individual employee because you're in this weird place, you're Switzerland, which is kind of awesome because, you're like, I'm taking care of you and your boss and the company as this abstract entity. I am here to creatively but analytically within the bounds of the tools that I'm given in the modern work world. So it's a really fun, it's problem solving, but there should be so much heart to it because you're there for the people. So you're there to be the guardian for all of those people, and you're kind of like the spoke the hub in the middle of the wheel, and the spokes come off. And I think that that's a very intriguing and a compelling, sometimes difficult place to be, but I think it's extremely fulfilling. Now, other people don't think it's fulfilling, which means there's another job out there for them. But if you like that kind of thing, then that's actually what HR is. I'm like, it's not Toby from The Office, please. Now, as great as that show is, as wonderful as that is, as wonderful as that is, I see it really as the wise guardianship of everyone. And not just everyone, but the abstract entity of what legacy you guys are building as an organization. And it's an intellectual and an emotional exercise. So you get to use your heart and your head. And that's what I think is really valuable.
Love that. All right, so we're wrapping up. So I know you mentioned earlier you don't really do social media. So I guess where can people find you? They can buy your children's book on Amazon. Final thoughts, and where can people find you?
I do have a Facebook. I just check it like every 6 months. So I am Dana Harper. And yes, I have I guess if you Google me, I'm on Amazon. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
What about the life and impact of Dorothy Sayers, or your life as a human resources professional would you like to leave us with?
Work and play. They are the same impulse in us, and they should be, and that's how life should be lived. And as an HR person, I strive to make that happen. And it should be based on the person's fit for the job that they're doing, basically what we think of as vocation. So the person should find that place where they feel like their work is their play and their play is their work, because that is what's going to leave somebody with a sense of satisfaction at the end of the day.
Love that. Love that. My guest has been Dana Harper, who is a wonderful human being, and told y'all she was brilliant. She's shaking her head, but she's very wrong. Human resource professional and children's book illustrator, which we found out. So thank you, Dana. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
If you enjoy this podcast, please leave a review. Tell a friend. Give us a gold star, or call my grandma. And if you want unforgettable events and training that's fun, like for real fun, get started today at workplaysolutions.com. I know I want that. Boo, boo, boo.
Oh, snap. I forgot what I was going to say.
It's okay. You got time. You got time. Yesterday, I was thinking about something, and I just made like 3 laps through the kitchen and like put something down and then picked it up and then put it back down and then picked it up again. She's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No, I just had I started writing my own satire on medium.com, which is just like a writers and bloggers platform. And so I keep having all these crazy ideas that I just need to like put down because I'm just like, it has nothing to do with, Workplay's business. I just creating things brings me joy. So, but that's been fun, but I definitely had one of those moments where it's like, are you okay? All right.